Hello, everyone, and welcome to Book Solid. We're your host. I'm India.
And I'm Soraya, and this week we're doing something a little bit different. So we are doing our first ever live episode.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, I know. So we just want to test this out and see if it's something that you all enjoy, if you prefer our regular episodes, that are pre-recorded and edited. This gives us a chance to kind of interact with you guys in real time. There's a feature here where you can comment. We could even add in like video calls if that's something that appeals to any of you. So let us know on Instagram, Facebook, here on Podbean, anywhere if this is something you like or if you prefer for us to keep doing it how we have been. One quick disclaimer before we start. So we don't have a professional studio. We're in a room where we live. We've tried to soundproof everything. But if you hear a neighbor walking by or upstairs, our apologies.
Bear with us, guys.
We can't control that. But, just wanted to throw that out there just in case you hear something. But let's get in.
Yes. And also, for those who have been listening, you guys probably know that around this time, the spoiler alert will come in. But of course, since we're live, we can't do that. So just so you know, if you haven't yet read Such a Fun Age, we will be tackling some major plot points that will be spoiler alerts.
All the plot points.
All of them. All the above. So yeah, that's just a heads up for you guys. And so yeah, I guess let's just jump right in.
Okay.
I've been itching to talk about Miss Alix or Mrs. Alix Chamberlain.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we have the most to say about her, so she's probably a really good place to start.
Yes. So, Alix is she's a modern woman, right? She's working this job that's heavily reliant on technology and social media. And as such, I figure that she's probably in the six-figure salary range. She lives this very affluent life with her husband, her newborn baby, and her young toddler daughter, Briar. And so, yeah, Alix is just exceptionally blessed, to say the very least.
She's living that influencer lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. But one thing with that kind of stuck out to me was that, I don't know, there's like a bit of a moral gray area just because she has so much access to wealth and opportunities. She I'm not really sure what the exact criteria of her job is, but she gets a lot of free products, and she also empowers women, and then she empowers women to get free products and to get, college applications together, stuff like that. But with that, she has a lot of just stuff. She gets wine bottles that she's like, I don't even drink this kind of wine. She gets technology, just things that she doesn't need. And so to me, that was kind of because it's like, I don't know, it just seems excessive.
Right, yeah. And it's like I'm all for, her helping women get what they want, and it never hurts to ask. That's like the big thing, but it never hurts to ask, I guess, for things that you actually need. So it is weird to write in for these things that you're not going to use because it is waste. And I want to say, we know we're not saying Alix's name correctly.
Yeah.
We don't know how you're supposed to say it. We have no idea. Alix. We don't know because it was Alix, like Alex, and if you read it, she changed it halfway she changed it when she turned 18 to Alix, so we're not totally sure on the pronunciation there. So we're just going to keep calling her Alix.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's get into her relationship with Emira, because I feel like there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just very, I don't know. There's times when I wanted to empathize with her because I know what it's like to want to get someone's approval, but she often crosses the line,
Yeah, she does. It's funny because the tagline for this book is doing the right thing for the wrong reason. And that's kind of, I feel like what Alix and Kelley both kind of live by. I argue that they're doing the wrong things for the wrong reasons a lot of the time. I don't even know if I would say they're doing the right thing, but they believe that they do, which that in and of itself is very problematic because I think people are willing to do a lot when they believe it's in the name of doing the right thing. So her relationship with Emira to me is just it's very strange. It really kind of moves into this obsession.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why she is so obsessed with Emira, why she desperately is seeking her approval so much,
Mm-hmm.
why she's kind of like working her way in her life and like believing she knows what's best for her. It's just, as the book progressed, it got stranger and stranger. And there was a part that cracked me up. And it was when Alix starts creeping through Amira's phone.
Mm-hmm.
And which, first of all, like,
What?
that's a whole other thing that we'll get to. But she was flipping through it, and she said something about the artist that she was listening to, and she said something like most are names she recognized. Like, do you remember the names of?
Yeah, it was like Michael Jackson or Janet Jackson and Outkast.
Yeah, and then she's like, but others were people she'd never heard of, like Drake, Tyga, SZA, and I was like, what world are you living in where you've never heard of Drake? I was like, come on, Alix. That doesn't speak to Alix's character. I just thought that was like a really strange observation on her part.
Yeah, and particularly, she's 35. Also, again, heavily relying on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I believe Emira doesn't have an Instagram. And the whole time, everyone's like, I can't believe she doesn't have an Instagram, all this. Okay, if you're on social media, you're in your 30s, you probably know who Big Sean is,
Mm-hmm.
Or like, you don't have to listen to them. But I agree. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. And let's get into kind of, I guess maybe like the lack of boundaries between Alix and Emira.
Oh my days. Like, it just frustrated me so much. And now that I've like had time to really think about it after reading it, I think it just speaks to her entitlement. Like, she is so incredibly entitled. And I kept thinking, I want you to get caught. Expose her, catch her, Emira, get her.
Every time she'd glance at the phone, I was like, okay, is Emira going to round the corner and catch her in the act?
Yes.
Like, please let that happen.
Yes. So, like, if you happen to be listening and you haven't read the book yet, what we're referring to is, Soraya brought this up already, but this woman, so Alix, she's the mom of the house and Emira is her sitter. Frequently, she goes out of her way to read Emira's phone. She's going through her text. She's looking at her music. And always, she's doing this, as she claims, to gain more insight onto Emira because she feels like they're not close. And she's trying to, like, kind of converge. That's not the right word. But, she's trying to get closer to her as a friend and not just a work professional relationship. And so, I just kept thinking these boundaries, like I wanted Emira to catch her. And I feel like she knew she can do that because she felt like she was, she would get away with it. Like throughout the book, we're going to get into this later, but she often crosses these crazy boundaries and does these things because she knows, whatever, like I'm not going to get in trouble. I'll get a slap on the hand. Like, where's the restraining order?
Yeah. And we kind of talked about this, I think, off air, but I kind of want to talk about the pressure, because I feel like Alix is a contributing factor to this with Emira, but the pressure that Emira is facing with trying to figure out her life. And then not only that internal pressure, but kind of external pressure coming from people like Alix, people like Kelley. I feel like everyone is treating her like she's 72 and is like bumbling around. And I'm not even saying like 72 is old. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because I feel like at any point in your life, you have the freedom to change what you're doing, figure out what you want to do. Because like you're going to keep getting older. So you may as well getting older doing something that you love. And so, yeah, I guess I don't really know like what exactly where I'm going with that with Alix. It's just, I don't know. I feel like Alix was kind of putting that pressure on her as well to figure things out. And it just added to the noise that Emira was kind of going through on her own.
Absolutely. I get what you're saying. And honestly, it kind of goes, so before we started recording, we were just talking about this idea of like ageism is kind of hovering over the book. So Alix is 35, Emira is 25 going on to 26. And that is something that just, for whatever reason, it lives rent-free in Alix's mind. She's thinking about it every day. She keeps bringing it up. And, I get it. Like, especially as women in today's society, aging is definitely deemed bad for whatever reason. There's a negative trope on it. It's always prevent wrinkles and, oh no, my hair's turning gray. And I understand it. I'm not going to play dumb. However, it was kind of upsetting because definitely, like Soraya said, Alix was putting this pressure on her. Kelley was. The people in Alix's life were like Tamara, which we'll get into. And so, you know, I will say reading this book, I felt so seen and I felt so validated because, as some of you guys know, me and Sarai went to the same college. You know, we're roughly the same age group right now. Like a lot of the experiences Emira is going through is directly stuff that I can relate to. And so that was nice. But it was just so weird to me how they kept trying to, you know, press on her like, okay, you need to get your life together. You need to figure out everything right now. And little do they know, it's on Emira's mind. Like she's very concerned about, she's turning 26, so she's going to be off her parents' medical insurance. So she's trying to get a job with benefits. But it's just all this pressure. And I'm like, what's wrong with you people?
And I think maybe that's why it's something that bothered me so much, because it strikes, like it hits so close to home. Like India was saying, you know, Amira's about to turn 26 in the book. I'm 24, India's 23. And I very much relate to that feeling of, so what am I supposed to do with my life now? You know, it's something that is constantly on your mind. And, you know, I do have people in my life who kind of are not so subtly trying to figure that out as well. And it's like, you just don't need the added pressure of other people trying to coax that answer out of you. And you're like, I genuinely don't know. I want to know. I would love to know, but I don't. I'm getting there, you know?
Right. And just the double standard. At one part in the book, I remember Alix says, oh, I remember what it was like when I was 25 and I had just finished college. And okay, so if you remember, why are you coming for Emira this way? Why are you sicking your friends on her?
Ooh, I cannot wait.
I can't wait to talk about Tamara. But you know, I just felt like it, even Kelley, because it was different. Of course, they're in this romantic relationship, but it was still kind of like, not judgmental necessarily, but he was kind of like, well, you know, you could stay at my house, which is actually nice, and like there's real furniture, not from like, you know, there's like this interesting dynamic with age and class. And by interesting, I mean problematic.
And there's a fine line. Like, I'm not saying people can never, like, it's fine to want to encourage people, help people in whatever way, or if they ask for your guidance or seek it out, I think that's fine. But to keep making little subtle comments is like where the issue stems from, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess we could talk about something you brought up when we were, I think before we started recording, was this idea of Alix being jealous of Emira.
Yeah. To me, I feel like she doesn't ever recognize it in herself, but that's something that really kind of leapt off the page personally, because like you were saying with like their age difference, she does kind of seem envious of Emira being at this point in her life where she does have like a world of possibilities open to her. You know, she's fresh out of college, she is looking for all kinds of new experiences. I think she's also kind of jealous of the fact that she doesn't have anything, I don't want to say weighing her down, but to me Alix kind of, I don't want to say she seems like she regrets having her children, but I think she regrets the life that she had before, or she misses the life she had before she had children. And so I think that she sees Emira, she's single, unmarried, you know, she doesn't have kids. And I think Alix really wants that for herself again, or just misses that time in her life. So like that is a contributing factor. And then the biggest one is Emira now being with Kelley.
Right.
Alix, okay, Kelley, I don't know, he must be the most attractive, charming, glorious man alive, because Alix is still hung up on this guy 15 years later. They dated for 3 months in high school. Like, Alix, let it go. But she can't, she won't. She's still obsessed with him.
Right.
And so she sees Emira with him. And there's even parts where, like, she said that she saw Kelley's hand, like, touch the small of her back or touch her waist, or the familiarity between how they touch each other. She's like, oh, I know they've been intimate. And she just seems so stuck on all of that. And she just can't, I personally feel like she can't stand to see Emira with Kelley, knowing she used to date him.
Right. Yeah. I think that, and again, I want to reiterate, I'm trying to picture what Kelley looks like because he must be, you know.
They tell us he's cute about 1,001
times. Like it's very much every other page. And so, you know, it's gotta hurt for Alix. Like you said, 15 years ago, she was in a 3-month relationship with this man. And then 15 years later, her sitter happens to be dating him. And this is like, you know, salt in the wound. This is the last straw. And then also Alix is at a point where she's going through some body changes and life changes. So I think she's feeling like she's getting away from when she was, I guess, more attractive or whatever when she was younger.
Right.
And just before the baby. And so I also feel like her beef with Emira, or not necessarily beef with her, I think she's trying to remedy some, like, so when she was in high school, there's that big situation that happened where she inadvertently almost upended a Black teenager's life, Robbie, who happened to be Kelley's good friend at the time.
He lost his scholarship because of her, right?
Yeah. And Robbie's Black. And because of that, she was kind of deemed as being racist, or she was. Pretty much everyone in the school felt like she was against Black people. And I think through Emira, 15 years later, she's still trying to, like, I guess, I don't know, disprove that moment in her life, which is just wildly inappropriate because these are apples and oranges. Like, Amira's living her own life. I think they're in, like, Philadelphia? And it's weird, but I got the vibe that that's what she's trying to do.
No, I can totally see that. And I wanted to touch on one more thing about her jealousy as well, as I think it's funny because I feel like throughout the book it's presented to us that she's so concerned about Amira's relationship with Kelley because, like, out of protectiveness. Because at that point in the book, we're led to believe that, Kelley's this horrible monster who broke up with her and humiliated her and, turned the whole high school against her. And so we're like, oh, okay, well, she desperately wants to, like, take Emira under her wing, so maybe she's trying to help with the Kelley situation so that she doesn't get hurt. But then we find out, dun dun dun, Kelley never even did the thing that she accused him of. And we'll get into that more later, and if you read the book, you know what we're talking about. But yeah, so Kelley never even did anything to her. I mean, he did break up with her, but that's it. He didn't betray her in this way he thought she did, or she thought he did. And so she's not really trying to protect Emira because there's nothing to protect Emira from. So then to me, I'm like, okay, so you're just jealous.
Jealous and controlling. And, also she's claimed she loves Emira so much. And, for multiple reasons, it's very clear to me that she doesn't. When I love someone, I don't like to see them hurting. I don't like to see them in pain, dealing with adversity and just, the things that life, it's going to happen and you're going to be there to help them when it happens. But the fact that Alix creates problems in Amira's life and creates tension, you don't love her. You need her. There's a difference.
Yep, exactly. I want to get to the meat and potatoes of my problems with Alix, which is Alix going into Amira's email and making that video public.
When I tell you my blood, it's boiling now.
I did something I never do with books, but I was so angry in that moment because I knew she was going to blame Kelley. I knew they were going to break up. This was back when we still thought Kelley could be a good guy. And so I was like, I hate misunderstandings. I'm so angry. So I flipped ahead 10, 15 pages to see if Emira finds out the truth. And then I was like, okay, now I could go back and read it.
When I tell you my blood, I was just electrified with what is going to happen. Just so much energy and emotion. And ultimately, I just wanted her to get exposed. I wanted Emira to find out. And of course she does, but it takes a while. And that whole time, just brilliant writing on behalf of Kiley Reid because, I was hooked that whole time. It just moved the story along. It just really spoke to Alix's character and how I say this every episode. I mean, look,
y'all
guys.
Ready for it?
Y'all ready for it? It has to be said. Alix Chamberlain is irredeemable.
Yes.
She just is. There's no fixing that. How do you do that as a good person? You don't.
We're going to make irredeemable merch.
Oh, yeah.
However
so, ... just jumping in. But yeah, I still can't believe she did that. And I think it was necessary. It was that inciting incident for everything to unfold, for Emira to really realize. And, her life ends as far as we know, on a pretty good note. And I feel like this has a lot to do with that. But yeah, she went through her email.
She went too far. Because it was blatant disregard for the effects that this could have on Amira's life. Alix is not a Black woman. She has no idea what this video coming out will do to Emira's like image or reputation, professionally, personally. You know what I mean? Emira didn't want this to be the first thing that potential employers see about her when they Google her name, because employers are Googling your name.
Right.
You know? And she didn't want to have to explain it to her parents. She didn't want to have to explain it to her friends, and that was her choice. And Alix completely disregarded that for her own self-interest.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it really, like we were saying before, of thinking she's trying to protect Emira, that's exactly what she told herself, because she was like, I know Kelley's gonna hurt her, I know he's gonna betray her, so let me do this first so that I can get Kelley out of her life before he hurts her. And like, for what? Like,
right.
It's like we just said, Kelley was not the big bad guy that Alix made him out to be. I feel like he was big bad in other ways, and when we get into Kelley's character, we can kind of talk about that, but it was just incredibly selfish.
Yeah, and you know what? As you were saying that just now, it just reminded me kind of on a very low-key level, the saying, playing God. Like, it is not up to Alix to decide how Emira's life will play out. And, you know, we don't know why. Like, there's people who are placed in our lives as a lesson. I definitely think Kelley was a lesson for Emira. You know, Kelley, we're going to get into him. Very charming, very deceiving, deceptive, okay? That's a lesson, you know? And so for Alix, he'd be like, no, it's up to me to protect her. And I'm like, girl. And then, you know, like Sarai was saying, there's a host of reasons why Emira didn't want that video out. You know, it was late at night. She was actually at a party beforehand, or the club with her friends, when she got this call to do her sitter job. So she's dressed not...
And she was not supposed to be there that night. Yeah,
she was
Alix
not supposed to be there.
Randomly.
Right. Because she's so entitled. It's, you know, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's 10:30 at night when you're not supposed to be working. Also, it's a Friday. Let me kind of, who cares what your plans are, but can you come take my daughter to the grocery store? So,
right.
Okay, can we just talk about that for a second? Because I don't think we've talked about that at all. I feel like that whole thing was very weird. So, and they never really talked about it again later in the book, but like Peter said that thing he said on the news. I think it was the local high school, people were doing promposals. And this guy asked out this girl, and from the description we're led to believe that the guy was black and the girl was not. And that when the video ended, because Peter's an anchor, he said something like, oh, I hope that last one asked her father first. And so people were like, you know, people like who live in the city were coming after him, like, why are you saying that? Like, are you racist? Like, that's really problematic. And so he was getting a lot of hate online, and then someone egged their house, and an egg accidentally broke the window. So that's the backstory. So they're calling the police to do a police report, and Alix then calls Emira, asks her to take her sleeping child out to the grocery store so she's not there while the police are there.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense
logic.
to me. Yeah, like, I didn't get it. Why the grocery store?
Right.
Why does she need to take your child at all? She's asleep. The police... I just didn't understand why Brian needed to be gone for this whole thing.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. We hadn't talked about that moment. And just it's really ironic, right? So there's a racially charged incident that causes them to call Emira in the first place, to then which she's racially profiled at a grocery store. Also, like, her husband's name is Peter, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I hope so. That's what I keep calling him.
But it's Peter for the sake of our podcast. But yes, so Peter is at least he has some racist tendencies, which is really especially interesting considering his sitter is a black woman. But yeah, you know, that night was just, for a lot of reasons, it was wrong. And for her to expose that night, because throughout the entire story, one thing that's consistent is the fact that Emira repeatedly has told everyone, I don't want that video to get out. You know, and she doesn't have to explain the reason why. That's trauma, you know. I don't think that's really explored a lot, but as black people, when we're placed in these situations where we're dealing with racism, whether it's overt, whether it's, you know, covert as a microaggression, you know, it's traumatic. It's something that's, I don't want to be thinking about that. Sometimes I just want to watch TV or, you know, listen to music. I'm not trying to think about that all the time. And I think Emira knew the ramifications of that video getting out, and we see that at the end of the book. And so for Alix to do that,
it's just it's not something that will ever happen to her. It's not something she could ever understand. It was not her place or anyone's place to make that call.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to get into. I kind of want to start getting into Alix's friends.
I do too.
I feel like there's a lot to be said there, and it also contributes to like this image that Alix wants to have for Emira.
Yes.
She wants Emira to see her. She's obsessed with this girl, you guys. Like, I don't
Yes.
understand it. But she wants Emira to see her in a very specific way. So she started saying that, or she said she started not having certain items out when Emira would come over. She wouldn't order takeout if Emira was over. She would like talk about certain things or not talk about certain things in front of Emira. And
that's kind of classist, by the way, now that I think about it. Like, why is she assuming that, you know?
Yeah, like she doesn't know her financial situation.
Yeah.
Her life. Like,
she doesn't want her to think she's like rich, which she is. But
yeah, but it's like how, and like you don't have to put your things away. Emira can tell by who you are and where you live, how you act.
Here's like, $30 to get one hot dog from the stand. You know?
Yeah. And so she was saying that, so she invited Emira to Thanksgiving. And the first thing she said was she wanted Emira to know that that Tamra was one of her closest friends. Tamra's Black. And that she had read every book Toni Morrison had ever written. Having Black friends, reading Black authors doesn't mean you're not racist, but okay.
Right.
And so she had invited Emira to Thanksgiving, and the night before, she was thinking in her head. Do you have that quote here?
Yes. I had the page number written down somewhere.
Hold on. We have to find this specific quote for y'all because it's very troubling.
Yes. Let's see. Okay. It's on page 160.
Okay.
Just picking up in the middle of the sentence. The fact that she'd lain in bed the night before and been so pleased as she counted in her head how many African American guests would be present at her Thanksgiving table. This number had totaled to 5.
Okay. If you didn't read the book and you don't know Alix, that tells you everything you need to know about Alix.
Yep.
It's just you're trying so hard to appear inclusive, to appear to not be racist. Like, if you're trying this hard, you have internalized racism.
Right.
Because no one's sitting around counting, like, how many, like, non-white people am I inviting to this shindig?
Yeah.
It's very, very, very bizarre. But let's talk about Alix's friends. Because if this is the most toxic group of people I've ever seen.
Yeah, and you know what? Notwithstanding, there's one person in particular we're going to get into, but just quickly I want to say, I think it's a group of 4 or 5 women. Each of them, for very many reasons, are problematic and say things that are not okay. But specifically Tamra. Uncle Tom Tamra.
Uncle Tom Tamra. That's what Zara called her. And
Yeah.
she was aptly named. So, to me, Tamra is... How do we want to describe her? Okay, to me, Tamra is... Okay, so sometimes when people have internalized racism, they will have certain people in their circle who share beliefs that are similar to theirs. So Tamra's purpose in Alix's friend group is to be like her token Black friend. But Tamra herself is not an ally to the Black community at all. She's actually kind of like separated herself from the Black community in a way. So what Tamra does is like it enables Alix to continue her like microaggressive racist behavior. But she's like, well, I'm not racist because I have a Black friend. Or like my Black friend agrees with me, so I can't possibly be racist. That is the purpose that Tamra serves in Alix's friend group. And to see that happening, troubling, infuriating, sickening, there's a lot of words for it. And the thing that stood out to me the most about Tamra was that Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. So Emira walks in and Tamra like immediately grabs her and she's like, oh, sister, come here. And then she like corners Emira at the dining table and like grabs Amira's hair. And I think Emira has a weave, right? Yeah. Yeah. And so she's like, oh, so what do you have going on under here? She's like, you must be afraid to go natural. Like, what? Okay. The ignorance. And so she's like asking Emira how long her hair is underneath the weave. And she was like, oh, do you watch Blackish? And Emira said no. And she's like, oh, darling, you must. It's a wonderful show. Just everything out of her mouth was so incredibly...
Yeah. You know, Tamara's interesting because, like you said, she's just repeatedly reaffirming Alix's own beliefs. So she's not actually challenging anything. So as far as her being, I guess, Alix's direct line to how to interact with Black people, Tamara couldn't be far from it, even though she is a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
She's also very affluent, from what I understand. She's like a principal of a private school or something. She has these insanely, incredibly obedient children, oddly obedient children, I should say.
Yes, for real.
But at the core of, I guess, the tension is the fact that it doesn't matter that Tamara and Emira are both Black, and it doesn't even matter that they're about 15 years apart age-wise. It's the fact that they're just two different people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't even think they watch the same TV shows or like their coffee the same way, or one probably prefers tea. Like, they're just different people. And so for her to be so, okay, they're both Black, like they're gonna get along and it's gonna give me brownie points. And,
yes, yeah.
You know, like, it's just so weird to me. In that conversation, oh my gosh, I can't even, it's just, again, the writing is brilliant because I was so uncomfortable reading about Tamara. I was so triggered.
And like, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about in having having Tamara in her life to enable her bad behavior. Because there's that part at the end. So, Alix, releases that video publicly, convinces Emira to do the news segment about it. And while they're getting ready, Alix is talking to Tamara, and she's like, do you think I did the right thing? Meaning making that video public without Emira's permission. And Tamara tells her, oh yes, of course you did, honey. You're the best thing to ever happen to her. That right there sums up the entire point I was making. It absolutely was not okay for Alix to make that decision. It absolutely was not okay for Alix to put this out there. And yet here is Tamara telling her, like, you're the best thing to happen to her because she even says, like, this girl is lost in her life. She doesn't know what she's doing. It's very concerning. And here you are. Like, what kind of savior complex? Like,
right.
Here you are to steer her in the right direction.
Like, you're not. Oh, wow.
And it speaks to, like, because you're saying, like, a God complex.
Yes,
earlier. Yeah, exactly.
absolutely.
Like, she's like a little puppet. And
right.
You can just dictate her life.
Yeah, and it's like, we were talking about earlier. So we have Alix, we have Kelley. Even Tamara is trying to play a hand in controlling Emira's life. And also, Soraya, you were talking about this earlier. So when that video comes out, we don't know what's going to happen. Fortunately, most people did empathize with Emira. And she was working part-time for the Green Party in Philadelphia as a typewriter. So once that video aired, her boss actually offered a promotion. And eventually she does end up taking the promotion. But she gets some job opportunities from the video, but we don't know that, right? We don't know that going in. Even in the video, again, she's dressed like any 20-something would be, going out with her girls for the night. I believe she was like cussing, and she was, she's very mindful of how she interacts with Briar, and she usually doesn't behave or carry herself that way.
Right.
So she didn't want that to be associated with how she interacts with children. Like, there's, again, a host of reasons why she didn't want that video out. But Tamara, not knowing anything about Emira really, or not even representing the Black opinion necessarily, it's just like, yeah, you did the right thing. It's going to help her. It's going to give her opportunities. Well, it did, but we didn't know that.
Right. Right. And that also, I want to touch on while we're talking about that news segment thing that she convinced Emira to do. It's strange to me because Alix was so, I guess I shouldn't say strange, but interesting. Alix was so obsessed with Emira being her friend, her girlfriend, her best friend, more than just her sitter. And so she, creeped through her phone. She went through her email. She would ask her questions like, oh, who are you dating? Are you dating anyone? Or who are you going out with tonight? But she didn't know anything real or substantial about Emira. She even makes references to this at some point through the book. Like when she was inviting Emira to Thanksgiving and she was hoping she would say yes. And she was like, oh, she didn't know if Emira had family in the area who she could stay with instead of her. Like there's just little things, hints dropped that Alix doesn't really know anything about her. And so then during that big blowout fight at the end, she accuses Emira of going to work for the Green Party because she knows that Alix is working for the, Hillary Clinton's campaign. And she's like, you did that and went and got a job at the Green Party just to spite me? And Emira's like, I've been working for the Green Party since before I started working for you. Like, it just shows how little Alix really knows about her and just the superficial relationship she had that she was so convinced was butting into something more.
Right. I mean, again, like, she claims she loves Emira. No, you love what she does for you in your life. You love that she's able to, again, and also something just quickly we could touch on again. It's very troubling and upsetting the way that she views Briar at times. It's almost like she's just in the way. At one point,
a nuisance.
Yeah, she's always saying she's so chatty and talkative. She just keeps, she's 3.
She's 3.
She's 3 years old. And like, you know, yeah, she needs Emira in her life because she knows that Briar really does love Emira and that she is a great sitter. But, you know, yeah, she keeps saying she wants to get closer to her, but she never actually makes an effort to get closer to her.
Right. And that's interesting because you're saying like she's interested in what Emira can do for her. And so after that whole thing that happens at Market Depot or that grocery store with Emira where that security guard accuses her of kidnapping Briar, it's just like mind-blowing to me. So Alix has a conversation on the phone with her friends the next day, and is she concerned about Emira and what happened to her? A little. What's she most concerned with? That Emira is going to quit.
Yeah.
And there's like a line where she said something like, oh, I just don't know what I would do if she quit. How can I ever finish my book without her? It's making me sick to my stomach to think about it. Like, instead of going to find Emira, call her, see how she's doing, your first concern is, wow, what will I do if she quits? I can't finish the book I haven't even started yet. Like, she's just self-serving. She's so self-serving.
Right. Yeah. I mean, multiple points. She forgets Emira's birthday. At one point, Emira is like visibly upset with her and she doesn't know why. And it's because Emira and Briar had been planning to go to Briar's ballerina Halloween party. And, you know, she bought cat ears. She was super pumped, excited. She was talking to her boyfriend, Kelley, about it. Kelley knew about it. And what happens the night of? Alix pulls some self-centered crap and is like, oh, just take her to the movies or something like that.
Yeah, because the fish dies, which is what tell right. The fish dies, so she like has Emira bring a fake fish, but then they're gonna miss their ballet. It's another strange thing. That was weird as well.
Yeah, and she kind of like dismissively was like, oh, you're not mad because you missed the ballerina party, right? Because she thinks she's doing her a favor. Cause she's like, well, when I would go, it was super boring. Like, well, first of all, if you're approaching someone's hurt feelings, that's a very like kind of defensive and combative stance because you're already, the way she phrased that, like, you're not mad about that, right?
You're
like,
already disregarding them.
Right. Yeah. And so it was just, you know, and then she makes Emira work on her birthday because she doesn't know it. Kelley calls her out for it later in the story.
Oh, yes.
And
then, so she has her working through her birthday. Never said happy birthday, didn't acknowledge it, anything. And then that night is when she actually, she knows it's Emira's birthday at this point. When she goes into Emira's email and releases the video anyway. And then she shows up at Emira's unannounced the next day. And you think, oh, maybe she's going to check on her. Maybe she's going to see if she's okay. Nope. She comes, makes really rude comments about Emira's apartment the entire time she's there. She says it in her head, but still talking about like, her IKEA furniture and wondering if this is a safe neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. And then she goes to give Emira a gift. And you're like, wow, okay. Maybe she's finally going to acknowledge that it was her birthday and that this horrible thing happened to her. Amira opens it. What is it? A calendar with the dates filled in for the next 6 months of Emira working for them full time. Like, even her quote unquote gift is self-serving. It's, hey, what else can you do for me? I want, like, what can I get from you? Instead of like, how can I help you genuinely as a person? And that's what she tells herself, but it's not really what she's trying to do. And I just have one more point I want to make about that is like what we keep saying is Alix wants to have this close relationship with Emira. But she refers to Emira as her sitter with her friends. She almost never calls her Emira. She always says, oh, my sitter, my sitter, my sitter. If she's more than that to you, like, you'd think that you would express that. But
yeah, and, you know, also, when she does that, she also makes a point to ask them, okay, well, didn't your sitter will do this, right? like, hey, Jody, didn't your sitter run
Mhm.
to Target to get, I don't know, like
Yeah.
there are people, they're human beings that are, you have a working professional relationship with, but they're also people. They're not, oh
And they
gosh.
exist outside of their relationship to you. They're not here just to serve you, you know?
Right. And also when she shows up unannounced to Amira's apartment, like you said, all that stuff was in her head, but I couldn't help but think, like, say that if this were like a film or a show or something, it would be written all over her face,
Yeah. Yeah.
She just seems so stuck up. And also the night before, Amira had the worst ever 26th birthday party in the history of birthday parties
That Alix caused.
that Alix caused.
She knows she's not with Kelley anymore.
Right. And, it's described that she's visibly upset. Like, you could tell she had been crying. She was dressed as people dress when they're comfortable and chilling in the comfort of their own house. And she doesn't care. She doesn't take into account any of that. She doesn't say, oh, hey, are you okay? Like, you seem kind of down. Or she doesn't know. She
No,
doesn't
yeah.
care or know.
Let's actually, I think there's one more thing I kind of want to talk about with her friends. So that initial conversation that she has really kind of sets the tone for who her friends are and the people she surrounds herself with. So she calls them to tell them what happened with Emira at the grocery store, and the conversation kind of gets sidetracked. And that's when we learn these are terrible, terrible people. Like, they start critiquing her about her weight gain and like how she needs to get her life under control. And it's just like, it stuck out to me because this is like page 79. I think when this happens. Actually, not even. It's like 40 or something. It's really early on in the book. And I'm like, okay, so this sets the tone for who Alix is and who the people in her life are. And did that stick out to you in any way?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I completely forgot, but that was a nails on chalkboard moment for me for a lot of reasons. Just because, when my friends are being vulnerable with me because, they're friends, like anyone in general, why would you kick someone when they're down? Like, she's clearly upset about gaining weight. And what do? I don't have the direct quotes on hand, but I know they're like, well, is it that bad? How bad has it gotten,
Yeah,
Like,
and she's like, yeah, when they're asking about her weight, they're like, how much have you gained? And Alix said, I'm afraid to look, or something like that.
yeah, and they're like, oh, no, it's that. Like, what? She had a baby.
She's still nursing her baby. Like,
right. And so, also, just quickly throwing this in the air, Alix is 5'10", 141 pounds. I'm like 5'9", so I've checked my BMI, and I know, like, on the BMI scale, there's, like, healthy range, overweight. Also, BMI scale is complete trash, but that's literally a whole nother episode. But I will just say, going based off the BMI, she's in the healthy range. I know that just from looking myself. And so I understand that, her body is different probably after having a baby, and that's definitely very valid. I just hate the way that her friends didn't comfort her and didn't, like, explore, like, weight isn't everything. What about her brain and her heart and her,
And like you've said, like, I think we talked about this off air a little bit, but Alix has built her brand on empowering women. So it's just kind of interesting that this public persona, this woman who breastfed her child on stage during an interview, is then, having this kind of negativity, these kind of comments going on in her day-to-day life. Or it's just interesting to see the image that is presented versus what's really happening.
It's very regressive, and it makes you think almost like, I don't really trust you. Like, you're telling me on Instagram and you're telling me on stage, love yourself, fight for your rights and whatnot, but then in private it's, oh, I gained weight, like, I'm not, like, I can't post, or I can't be seen by my high school boyfriend because...
And, like, I get it. Everyone has those struggles. You know what I mean? Like, even on your most confident of days, like, we're human and those things happen. But it's just the way that her friends built it up to be all that she is worth or all that she is good for is her appearance, because that's really how the conversation was portrayed to us. To me, that is what was, like, really, like, troubling. And like you said, the weight that they're criticizing her for didn't even seem to be really anything at all.
Right. And yeah, I do want to reiterate that. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm not, like, I don't have insecurities, because that not at all is what I'm focusing on. But it's like Soraya's saying, it's her friends. Like, they were so awful. Where is the support, you know?
I kind of want to move into, if you want to,
Kelley? Yes. I'm very ready.
Kelley Copeland. I really thought he had me in the first half. He really did. Because I thought that he's going to be this great guy, and, you know, Emira was going to be in this amazing relationship where she was going to grow as a person, and, you know, he was going to be exactly what she needed at this point in her life. But, yeah, he's trash. So.
Yeah, he's very much trash. He's gold-covered trash. He is luxurious trash. The trash is left on top.
Luxurious trash.
You know, I agree. I wanted to like him so bad, you know, and especially knowing this, I kind of feel like Emira's in the belly of the whale, per se. She's in a rough patch in her life. I wanted something good for her, and I thought Kelley could be that. And, you know, again, this is another moment of good writing, because it's kind of like hanging in our air, because we don't really know what his intentions are with Emira. And he seems so genuine. He's just so beautiful and attractive. But there's these moments that stick out, where you can kind of, like, just, I don't know, like, for example, when she first introduces him to her friends and she notices he shows up and all of his friends are exclusively Black men. And so she's like, that's interesting. And then she's in his apartment and she's looking at his vinyls, and he has a Waiting to Excel vinyl. Otis Redding. And, like, so that right there is kind of like, that's not to say if you're not Black, you can't, you know, have Black friends or engage in Black media, but exclusively.
Like, he's only seeking that out. And those are like side-eye moments. And then we find out he only dates Black women. And we're like, oh, okay. So you have a fetish. We got it.
You're a fetishizer. Gotcha. Okay. And specifically, something that was interesting to me that Kiley Reid made a point to mention in the book is that he has a pattern of dating ethnically ambiguous looking Black women, or just mixed women in general, lighter in complexion. And Emira is not. And so for me, I was just kind of wondering, like, is this like an experimentation or something? Like, what's going on with that? But yeah, he's a whole fetishizer. Throw him in the trash.
Yeah, he really, and that's what's so interesting. So we have this, like, kind of blowout between him and Alix finally towards the end of the book, because, you know, there's this tension from them having dated previously, and they both have very different perceptions of how that relationship ended. So they kind of, you know, come to blows when she shows up at his work unannounced. And it's crazy to me because they're both sitting there arguing about who knows what's best for Emira. So that was, like, one thing that was very strange. I'm like, she's a fully grown woman who doesn't need either of you in her life to guide her, help her, tell her what to do. She's going to be fine. But what's crazy is Kelley is so convinced of Alix's internalized racism that he doesn't even realize, like, he is very problematic in and of himself. Like, I feel like they both have issues, and they're both trying to prove they're not racist in, like, very different ways, but it's equally troubling. It's equally wrong.
Right.
Like, you know, Kelley is like, ever since Alix in high school, that was the last, you know, white girl that he dated. After that, it's only been Black women. He only has Black friends. He's incredibly immersed in Black culture. And he's like, I can't possibly be racist because I am so invested in Black culture and Black people. The two are not mutually exclusive, but okay. And then Alix, on the other hand, is, like, trying to find a way to prove she's not racist by, you know, like, trying to rekindle this friendship with Emira, by kind of trying to go out of her way to be nice to Black people. And so I feel like, you know, Kelley just took it to the extreme, and so he views Alix like she is an internalized racist, but I'm like, you have your own set of issues. So it's just interesting to me the way in which they view each other and themselves, but they both think that what they're doing is wrong. Like, Kelley thinks what Alix is doing is wrong. Alix thinks what Kelley is doing is wrong, but they don't see that they're both doing the same thing.
Right.
If that makes sense. That's a long-winded way of getting there, but
no, yeah, absolutely. They're mirror images of each other.
Yeah, they are. They really are.
And I forgot to mention this earlier, but okay, here's the record scratch for me. Here's where the relationship should have probably ended. I think it's their first official date. And Kelley is talking about a story with his little brother when the little brother realizes that their neighbor's racist because something, I think they're watching Moesha or something, referencing some TV show. Long story short, Kelley, in talking about the story, says the N word, hard ER.
Yep.
For why, Kelley Copeland? Why is this in your vocabulary?
And like, he saw nothing wrong with it because he's like, oh, I'm telling a story and that's what happened. And he's trying to like explain how what that guy did was so wrong. But like, you could have told the story without the hard ER. And it was just an interesting moment because Emira had this what I imagine appeared to be instant to Kelley, but was this whole thought process going on in her brain of, do I say something? Do I not say something? Is it worth bringing up? This relationship's new. Do I want to have the subsequent conversation? Because he could very well say, well, why can't I say it? And I feel like we have all, as a Black person, had that moment where someone has said something in front of you and you have to decide, okay, am I going to get into this with them right now? And so it just was very interesting the way Kiley Reid wrote that, because I feel like that part was incredibly relatable. I know you probably have. I have had people say things in front of me that they absolutely should not have. Shouldn't say period. And you do just have that moment of, all right, is it worth getting into this?
Yeah. And it's funny because he knows he was wrong, because right after that he was like, I'm not going to say it again. You get the point.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's like you said, she's like, I don't want to be the angry Black woman on our first date. And it just sucks that as Black people, we constantly have to have these mental battles with ourselves and deal with how we're being perceived and just don't say it. It makes me uncomfortable,
And that's it, period. I don't have to keep going on about why it makes me uncomfortable or why you feel like you should be. That's just the end of the conversation. Right. It makes me uncomfortable. Don't say it around me. Don't say it at all. Don't say it around me.
Right. I know. I know. It makes me think, I wonder what he says when she's not around. But I do want to say really quickly, that meme that was going on for a while, that was like, who you think the villain is, who the actual villain really is. So it's like, who you think the villain is, Alix, who the villain actually is, Kelley. Or Tamara.
Yeah, no, for real. Let's just push Tamara right there because, ooh, and I think one of my biggest issues with Kelley is there's a lot, but he, is continuing to date Black women, but I feel like he doesn't acknowledge, in any interracial relationship, I think, I'm not saying you have to just dwell on that, and I'm not saying that you can't have an interracial relationship, of course not. But what I'm saying is there needs to be an acknowledgement of the fact that you have different life experiences.
Definitely.
I just don't think that's something that can be brushed aside, especially, him being a white male, she's a Black female. I feel like in this country, those are the two most different life experiences that you can have. And so he kind of doesn't really realize that, I feel. We see this in his constant pressuring of her to release that video. We've already said it, but Alix didn't understand the effects that could have on her life, and Kelley certainly didn't either. And again, he will never be a Black woman. It's not his place to say. But he was constantly trying to get her to do it because he believed it was the right thing. Or just saying the N-word like that in front of her without even thinking about how that could affect her. It's he just doesn't understand her life and his life and the ways in which they're different and the things they're going to go through. Or taking her to that bar.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Weird,
just
this bar that probably had Confederate
flags.
Let's just say that. Taking her there but not even thinking about the fact that would make her uncomfortable.
Right.
It's just little things like that.
Yeah, and she's like, don't ever take me here again. He's like, what? Why? I'm like
I love this bar. I come here all the time.
Yeah, and also really quickly I want to say, just in terms of their relationship together, at that bar, he was going to say, or he was about to say the L word. He was about to say he loves her, which that's not the time
and
at
they were
all.
in the middle of an argument. And I think I've said this to you. I can't remember if it was off air or when I was saying it, but I have a really big problem with people. This is really common in books and film, TV shows, anything. People like to solve arguments by saying, I love you, or will you marry me? That is not the time. I don't want those words coming out of your mouth in the middle of this, huge, yelling match, screaming match, whatever, because, you think that that's the best time or that's gonna solve everything. Like, I just feel like it's just like, oh, we're fighting, I love you, and then it's always like portrayed as being so romantic too.
Right.
Like, oh, I love you too. Oh my gosh, like, didn't you just throw something at him a minute ago?
Right. You know what? As you say that, I get the vibe. That's like borderline emotional abuse almost. It's definitely at the very least manipulative because much like Alix, his mirror, look in the mirror, very much identical twins or fraternal. He doesn't love her. I don't think he loves her because he doesn't really consider how she's feeling ever.
No.
You know? And okay, so when Alix frames him basically for releasing this video that she knows Emira didn't want to get out, Emira breaks up with him. Yes, I said that right. Sorry. You know, they split up, and later, once they go on air and everything happens, and long story short, Kelley realizes that Emira knows that he is innocent, right? He sends her this terrible
like emotionally disconnected, like just this super like go ahead. Yeah,
he's just like, so happy for you, like, hope you find your truth kind of thing.
Yeah, he's like, I always knew you had it in you or something. I'm like, what kind of like patronizing?
Yeah, that's the word, patronizing. And it's just like, okay, but you loved her though, right? Why aren't you? And granted, you know, once she broke up with him, he did try to reach out to her. But again, when you love someone, you probably understand boundaries and space. And I know
she was upset. She wanted time to cool off. Yeah.
Like for me, when I'm really, really like seeing red angry, I know that's not the time for me to hash out anything because I'm going to be speaking out of emotion. I'm going to say things I don't mean. So she needed time to cool off. And Zara, her best friend, literally tells him that. Like, she needs time to steam off, cool off.
Yeah.
So give her that time. And then since you love her, show her. But he doesn't.
He doesn't. He didn't even try. He was just like, she's mad. All right, toss it. Throw the relationship away. Girl. On to the next black girl, which is exactly what he did.
Literally.
So, yeah.
Yeah. He is gold-covered trash.
Gold-covered trash. So, we are coming up on an hour. So, is there anything else you want to say about the book before we, like, wrap up?
I guess really quickly, I just want to say I really loved the way that the character of Emira was written. I resonated with it so much, and it just was, like, the physical embodiment through ink on page, the representation that I'm always talking about because I related so much to her. And like at one point she gets a bonus on her check, which is, you said this off air, but it's basically hush money right after.
From Alix, yeah.
Yeah, and so what does she do? She buys this $250 leather jacket. And she feels kind of guilty, you know, but I'm just like, I've been there, you know, like when you're in your 20s, especially post-college, like sometimes you want to treat yourself, you know, and you want nice things.
It was realistic behavior.
Right. Yeah. It felt very genuine, and I really appreciated that. But yeah, do we want to start moving towards conclusion?
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, we posted on our Instagram, and so this is something we do, you know, for every book. We always encourage listeners to either send us an email if you've read a book that we're about to record and tell us your thoughts, or, you know, anything. And we posted on Instagram. We got a couple people who wrote back, so I just wanted to shout out to them really quickly. We had a listener, Maddie. She said she didn't love the book. She felt like Kelley and Alix are both just annoying and bad people. Agreed.
Yes.
But she related to Emira because she has no idea what she's doing. Also agreed. So yeah, I would agree. I think the book, I would say I did enjoy the book.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry, were you reading the...
Oh, no. I'm just saying my...
Oh, okay, yeah, got you. I was agreeing.
Yeah,
I agree both with you and then the comments.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say like I did like the book. Kelley and Alix made it hard to love at parts, but that was the point. And then Jade said it was thought-provoking. She loved it, and it kept her hooked from the first few pages. And let me see if we have anyone else. Okay, yep, and that was it. So, as always, you know, if you read our book or read the book that we're chatting about and you had anything you wanted to say, feel free to send emails to us, like I said. Drop by on Instagram. If we continue with this live format, you can comment live, so that's a really cool feature. Our next book is Mexican Gothic, heading into spooky season. We're very excited for this thriller. Is there anything else that you want to say before we close out officially?
I guess at this point, I just want to thank you guys for listening. We love when you guys interact with us. We're actually itching for it. Please do.
Subscribe, and please, oh please, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. We really enjoy seeing what people have to say. Like, we're not kidding. As soon as one comes in, we'll text the other one a screenshot, like, oh my gosh, look what somebody just said. Because, like, it's just nice to know what you guys are thinking.
Right. We don't bite, guys. Don't worry.
And if you too, I think if you listen on Podbean, you can comment. I'm not sure because I don't use Spotify. I don't think there's a commenting feature. But
no. But if you can, follow us there, subscribe. It helps us out.
Our YouTube channel, you can leave comments there. We love to hear from you. So if there's any books that you would like to hear us review, you can also just send us an email at booksolidpodcast@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram. We love taking suggestions, and we have like a running list of suggestions from listeners. So yeah, if you haven't, you can follow us on all our socials, which will be in the show notes of this video once we upload it. It's pretty much Book Solid Podcast everywhere if you don't want to wait for that. And we will see you all with our next episode.